Hello everyone, it is your boy Winster and I am back at it again with another video. Today we are going to be talking about the best board breakers in the current Yu-Gi-Oh format, the ones that you should be playing and some that, listen bro, you got to give up all hope. But before we get into today's content, I do want to say thank you so much for always supporting. And if you want to support a little bit more, please consider subscribing to the channel. It does help out. We're getting ever so close to 1,100 subscribers, which is insane. Thank you again. On top of that, do not forget to check out all the social media platforms in the description box below. I have a very active Discord. I stream regularly on Twitch. I have a Twitter, and I post regularly on TikTok. TBH, the last couple of days I've been really posting on TikTok, but that's for a different conversation. Let's get into these board breakers so we can help you out on how to break these boards. Quick little story before we start getting into today's content, guys. So I've been working in an office for about the last 8 years of my life, and I don't function without coffee in the morning. So between recording this, I had to pick up Starbucks, and on top of that, I just recently started getting all the Starbucks rewards because I would go so often and I never would get rewards. But I recently started getting the rewards and I finally hit like a big number where I could get an iced coffee for free. So your boy had to pick up some Starbies before we get really in depth into this conversation. But they got the new white peppermint white chocolate. I don't know what it is, but absolutely fire. Let me let me get that little good sip in. If you guys are a casual Starbucks enjoyer like myself, make sure you let me know in the comment section your favorite drink at Starbucks. Now, before we start ranking everything, I do want to say that these are my opinions, guys. There is no right or wrong answer. This is going to be a two-way street. I want to hear your guys' opinions on the matter, too. If you guys could break down a quick tier list of your own in the comment section or give your thoughts on my tier list, let's talk about it. This is what this is about. But let's get to ranking. Personally, Book of Eclipse is mid vibes for me. It's okay in the main. It's a better sideboard option. If you do decide to play it in the main, it's not going to hurt you. It is a great board breaker. And for that reason, I do think it's okay. Big mid vibes. Let's talk about Book of Moon, guys. Book of Moon falls in that same category as Book of Eclipse. It serves almost the exact same purpose, defensively, offensively. Whereas Book of Moon does target, and it's almost a one-for-one trade every time. Book of Eclipse doesn't. There's a direct counter for it, and a very popular one at that being Ash Blossom for Book of Eclipse, but they're both not once per turn, so you could just still activate it again. And they serve the same purpose, right? If your opponent's trying to negate something that you normal summon or special and you need to resolve that effect, you could just book your own monsters. So they're both good in the same areas, but I do think that Book of Eclipse has a wider span. And just because of that small little detail, I do think Book of Eclipse is better than Book of Moon, but it serves almost the same purpose. So let's talk about Forbidden Chalice. Forbidden Chalice, or the Forbidden line of cards, has been some of my favorite in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Droplet, personally my favorite card of all time. I'm currently working on my ultimate playset, but Forbidden Chalice is very unique because it can be activated during the damage step, because it does increase or decrease attack points. But pretty simply, I do think this card got power crept. Going second, essentially, is going to be a one-for-one trade. If your opponent is able to set up a board, you're just going to negate, whatever card that you need to negate, and that'll be kind of it. But going second, that's the only time you'll be able to activate it. It did get power crept by Infinite Impermanence pretty hard. Infinite Impermanence, even though it can be activated during a damage step or a damage cow, I do think that it's an overall better card. Your opponent's trying to pop off, you can just activate an Infinite Impermanence on their turn. On top of that, both of these cards won't make Talons or Thrusts live, but definitely something to consider. I don't think it's a bad card by any regard, but the power crept is just too much. And I don't see a point to play this card, in my personal opinion. Unless the meta changes so much where you have to negate everything, but at that point, they're just better cards for that. So I do think playing Forbidden Chalice is unnecessary. So where does Change of Heart lie on this tier list? Personally, I think Change of Heart is a phenomenal card, but 1,000 times better in the sideboard than it is in the actual main. Not that you can't play it in the main, but you should be playing this in the sideboard. As a great matchup versus a lot of decks these days, you could Change of Heart any problematic monster, you could Change of Heart Barone, you could Change of Heart the Unchained monster that links your monsters away. Now your opponent doesn't have anything to really link off with or pop. It's so good in my personal opinion. And on top of that, it's searchable through thrust. Uh, it just, there's so much I could say about this card. And on top of that, it's easier to deal with problematic boss monsters or floodgates. You change of heart whatever's floodgating you, and then you just link it off or use it as material for a summon, and then bam, you're done. So I do think that that does hold a lot of weight, and I do think that Change of Heart should be played in the sideboard, especially in today's format. Let's talk about Cosmic Cyclone. Man, I'm telling you, that coffee has me going. Cosmic Cyclone is a phenomenal card in the current meta. There are so many problematic floodgates. There could only be one. Rivalry of the Warlords, Goes in Match, Summon Limit, Anti-Spell, any field spell that prevents you from doing stuff. I could go on and on of floodgates that are in the back row. And Cosmic Cyclone puts a stop to all of them instantly, not once per turn. It does cost 1,000 life points to activate, which can maybe be problematic if you're playing into time, but overall, phenomenal card. Can you play this in the main? Yes, like any other card, probably not. Should you be playing this in the side? Of course. I've seen countless deck profiles, and I see side decks always having this card 2 to 3 copies. I think 2 is perfect, so I think you should be playing this in the side. It's not better than Change of Heart, but it's right there. Such a good card. Dark Hole. Now, it's crazy. I never thought I was going to be talking about Dark Hole. In my last tier list, I didn't include it for 2 reasons, guys. I didn't think it was necessary, and number 2, I forgot. So that's why we're talking about it right now. But Dark Hole, super simple. Destroy all monsters on the field, including yours and your opponents. Defensively, if you do a play against someone who does Ibly lock you, you're going to go ahead and get rid of that. Or if they're going to try to Raw's Disciple you, obviously Gimmick Puppet doesn't really matter. But it's a good board wipe. But the negative side to this is that a lot of cards these days do get their effects off of being destroyed by card effect. Because of that, I don't think this is a good idea to play this. There are better ways to clear the board that we're going to go ahead and go over, but I don't think Dark Hole is the wave. I don't think Ibly Lock or Raw's Disciple Lock is a big threat in the current meta, because the decks that do play that don't really try to go for it too often. And because of that, and because of the other, where a lot of cards do get their effects because off of being destroyed, I don't think you should be playing this. So if you want, it's not good in the main, somewhat decent in the side. That's my opinion on it.
Draw phase, standby,
Main phase. End of main, trying to go into battle. End of battle phase. And that is the next card that we're talking about, Evenly Matched. Evenly Matched is such a great Yu-Gi-Oh card in my personal opinion. Yes, you have to give up your battle phase so you can't kill your opponent, but essentially you're gonna kill them because if they use all their resources to build up a board and they have to banish it face down to equal the same number of cards that you do, which would be 1, and then you set up your board, you're just going to be able to kill them next turn. On top of that, Evenly Matched is not once per turn, which is crazy. So they do negate it, you could activate another one. It does get around cards that can be affected because, again, it makes your opponent banish them, not you. So your opponent decides what to send, which is insane to me. But I don't think it is a very strong card in the main. There are very few decks that can run this in the main. The only one that really comes to mind is like Trap Tricks or any trap heavy deck. So it's a lot better in the sideboard. But because of that, I do think that Evenly Matched should definitely be right here. Evenly Matched, for me at least, will always be a very powerful card. What can I say that you already don't know? Phenomenal card. Anytime your opponent activates an effect, be it draw, standby, main 2, battle phase, end phase, well, not really end phase. Anytime they activate a monster effect at any point in time in your turn, you're going to be able to slam this bad boy down. And if they control a monster while you activate this, you're going to be able to search any spell or trap and add it directly to your hand, and you can activate it that turn. Insane. So we have to talk about why Thrust is so good. Honestly, the Thrust targets is what makes Thrust such a powerful card. You got Triple Tactics Talents, Dark Ruler No More, Evenly Match, Harpy's Feather Duster, Raigeki, Dark Hole, Change of Heart, D Barrier. The list goes on and on what you can search off of Thrust, and that exactly is what makes Thrust such a great card, such a phenomenal card. It is essentially a board breaker searcher. Because of that, you could definitely play this. It is the best of the best. You should be playing this card. It just has so many options on what you could search out of it. Even if you don't search a board breaker, you could search up a starter to your engine. You could search anything. It's such a good card, and definitely you need to play this. Winged Dragon of Ra, hear my cry. I don't know the rest of this thing, so I'm going to pretend that I do. Please let me annihilate my opponent and help me see this through. Where does Sphere Mode land on this tier list? There are two things going against Sphere Mode. One, it takes up the normal summon, and in some decks, you cannot do that. The normal summon is by far the most important thing. Two, your opponent needs to have 3 monsters in order to special this, normal summon this to their side of the field. Nowadays, boards are ending about 2 monsters, so I think it's too specific for the current format. Not that it's a bad card, but it does get overshadowed by its counter, which we will get to in a moment. But again, I think it's too specific. It takes a component of your turn if you need your normal summon. So because of that, again, I don't think it's bad, but in the current format, I don't think you should be playing this. There's better options for it. Dark Ruler No More. The end of Dark Ruler Hot S. Now, where does Dark Ruler No More land on this tier list? I personally think it's such a powerful card. It's a blanket effect, negate everything on the field, cannot be responded to by monster effects. Your opponent can chain, spell, and trap, and if they have a targeting effect, they could potentially negate this Dark Ruler No More. A good example, Heart Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. Again, super specific example, but it can be done. It goes hand in hand with Evenly Match. When in the main you slap Dark Ruler No More, and then right after that you hit them with the all scary words of end of battle phase, and then their field is wiped. Yes, you can't kill them, the same situation as Evenly Matched, but I do think it's still such a powerful card. But because of that, I do think that it will fall right here. Great. You can't play this in the main, but way better in the side. So for Bidden Droplet, one of my personal favorite Yu-Gi-Oh cards of all time. I really like that art. He finna drop it on him. But Forbidden Droplet is one of those cards that did power creep Forbidden Chalice. It almost made Forbidden Chalice unplayable, because why would you when you can play Droplet? The good side of Droplet, it doesn't target spell speed 4 depending on what you discard for cost. However, it does take up a lot of the resources. So if you play a deck that does need a lot of resources to play, you may not want to play this. But if you don't care about those resources, you could play this card. It is great to see it be back on a tier list in some sort of capacity because of Rise Heart, or the past previous formats you couldn't play it because of Kashtira, essentially turning off the graveyard. But now that they're gone and banned, the evil has been defeated. Now you can play Forbidden Droplet. Now, where does it land on this tier list? It is such a good card, non-targeting. And on top of that, if you were to play something and you could chain this card, send that card that you activated at its cost. So it's so good. And because of that, I do think that it is good in the main. It can be played in the main, but way better in the side. You don't have to play it, but I think you should, in my personal opinion. And I'm trying not to be biased because I really enjoy this card, but I definitely think that you should play it. It's a great card. Let's talk about Enemy Controller. Enemy Controller is an old staple Yu-Gi-Oh card, still used in GOAT formats. And it recently came out on OTS 23 or whichever OTS they're on, and I have not been able to hit not one. Be sure to check out the TikToks and the YouTube Shorts, guys. You guys will see all my misses there. But Enemy Controller is such a powerful card. Could change the battle position, contribute a monster as cost, and then you can take control of a monster your opponent controls. But I do think he got power crept a bit. There are better options to take control of your opponent's cards without having to use one of your resources. But in that same note, you can play this card defensively, right? If you normal summon your activate effect, your opponent tries to negate it with Imperm or Effect Veiler, you could activate this because it is a quick play. and then you could go ahead and tribute your monster's cost and then take control of your opponent's monster. I think that's very situational, and it's not going to happen too often. Not that it won't, but it's not going to happen enough. And because of that, it got power crept by a lot of cards. There are way better options to take control of your opponent's monsters without having to use one of your own resources. So I do think this is a way better option. It's very mid. I think there's better options to take control of your opponent's monsters. And because of that, I will put it in mid vibes. You could play this in the main. You could play this in the side. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Kashtira Fenrir. Such a powerful card. There's a lot of things going for the card and not a lot going against it, honestly. The only thing that really stands out is that its effect to banish something face down when your opponent activates a monster effect is on resolution of those monster effects. So if they get rid of this before you activate the effect, it could be a problem. It searches itself out. It doesn't activate to summon itself. On attack declaration, banish any face-up card your opponent controls face down, so you could potentially get rid of problematic monsters or Floodgate. So, and on top of that, it's a perfect synchro to synchro into Barone. It's crazy that the archetype was really powerful, but the moment that people started realizing is that you could splash this card in anything, that's when the card really took a turn. And because of that, it's definitely one of the best in the game. You can play this in the main, you can play this in the side. Personally, one of the best cards in the current format. Let's talk about Kaijus. Kaijus are super strong in the current format, but I do want to bunch them all together, right? Because they all do the same thing. They tribute monsters, special summon. The good side to it is that your opponent cannot interact with that effect because it doesn't activate, it just tributes. But depending on what deck you do play, for example, if you play Branded, I'm sure you're going to want a lighter dark monster so you could fusion with it. So just keep that in mind. And I definitely think you should be playing them. Yes, they're effectively a 1-for-1 trade, but they get over things super easy, and your opponent can't really interact with them when you try to, tribute their monster. But because of that, it's a phenomenal board breaker. Gets over anything really, as long as you can special summon this thing. It's definitely great. Not the best, but definitely better in the side, which you should be playing this. You can play these in the main depending on the format, but they're great Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Not the best of the best, but definitely great. We're moving along on this tier list, guys. The next card we're going to be talking about is Harpy's Feather Duster. In my opinion, a very powerful Yu-Gi-Oh card. And on top of that, Lab is still very prevalent in the current format. So there is a need for back row removal. That's why even Cosmic Cyclone was on the list. However, the downside to Harpy's Feather Duster is that it's not as a quick play. If it was a quick play, it would be game over for these lab players. But let's go ahead and talk about it. Harpy's Feather Dusters, there's not much to say, right? Your opponent sets up a crazy amount of traps. You're just going to blow them all away. Because it just clears your opponent's back row, it's so strong, and you definitely need to play it. I do think that it belongs in the great, but not the best, right? I definitely think you should be playing this. It's a toss-up between before right here. It's definitely in this area, right? It's still a very powerful Yu-Gi-Oh card, and I do think that it is better than this. Not as good as these here. Infinite Impermanence, such a powerful card in the current format, and honestly, I could see this card still being powerful moving forward. There are so many things going for it, right? You could activate going second on your opponent's turn of them going first. It doesn't activate triple tactics or thrust. You could activate on your turn going second to negate a Floodgate monster. Everything that I explained when I was talking about Forbidden Chalice, this is just the updated version of that. It can't be activated in the damage cow. But who really cares? You can just activate it before and negate a problematic card. There's not really much to talk about here. It's so strong. It's going to be strong even for years to come because it's a very simple card, but yet so effective. I personally think it's one of the best. Great in the main, great in the side. You should be playing this card. Let's talk about Kuri Kara. It is such a great Yu-Gi-Oh card. It even had its moment in the last couple of formats where it became the staple card in the sideboard because Kashtira format was still a thing, a Rice Heart was still a legal card, and they're going to activate all their effects. The good side to this card is that it tributes everything. So it's still a good way to clear the Noir in this current format, but it really shined in the last ones. But the problem with it, it is reliant on your opponent to activate effects, and then you'll be able to tribute those monsters off, and then you get a nice special summon, and you get a special summon from the grave at the end phase. But because it is a kaiju that relies on your opponents, I do think it can be situational, especially in the current format. Not that Noir isn't powerful, it's just there isn't a need to have to react to your opponent, right? And I think kaijus are way better than this card. It is still a nice card. There are some applications to it, but I think it definitely had its moment to shine. It is okay in the main, maybe not. Definitely okay to have in the side, maybe more so than that. But just kaijus outshine this card for the specific applications that it's used for time and time again. So I think it's okay. It's not a bad card to play. You don't need to play the card. You could play it in the side and just be fine, but it's not a necessity. Lightning Storm, such a good Yu-Gi-Oh card, man. It serves two purposes, so it could clear up some of the sideboard options that you have, make space, right? Because it's Raigeki and Harpy's Feather Duster, clears all back row, clears all, or it clears all face-up attack position monster your opponent controls. If it's negated, the activation, you could activate another one if you have it. So I definitely think that this card, because Labyrinth and Floodgates are still a thing, I think this card is really, really powerful because it's just another copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. And in some situations, it's a copy of Raigeki. So I do think that this card is still very, very powerful. I think it's just as strong as the Harpy's Feather Duster, Cosmic Cyclone. I think they're overall very powerful cards, and I definitely think you should definitely be playing them. Can you play them in the main? They're okay. Way better in the side. Definitely need to play these in the side. Lava Golem. It's crazy to think. Lava Golem came out before Sphere Mode. They were shown in the anime around the same time, but Lava Golem is just a better version of Sphere Mode. Lava Golem requires less monsters, and you just tribute 2 of your opponent's monsters and give your opponent this. Super good card. It's definitely way better in the side. Definitely a good sideboard option. I don't think you should be playing this in the main unless your deck really specifies that it should. But I would definitely put it in the great, not the best, for those specific reasons. Way better in the sideboard. Not as good as these other cards in my personal opinion, but definitely a strong card. Raigeki. Raigeki is such a classic Yu-Gi-Oh card, and for the longest time it was banned. I remember when I was a kid. But Raigeki is such a powerful card. But I think it's almost on the same playing field as Dark Hole, where Dark Hole could at least be played defensively or offensively, right? If you get like Ibli locked or Ra's Disciple locked, you could at least board wipe your own field, right? Where Raigeki destroys your opponents, but in both scenarios you trigger destruction effects. And today's format with Unchained on how strong it is, right? They're going to be able to, pop off even more. So because of that, I do think that Raigeki is not good in the main, somewhat decent on the side. It's on the same playing field as Dark Hole. It's not a bad card by no means, but should you be playing it in this current format? Probably not. So, Super Polymerization. I personally think it is a very, very powerful Yu-Gi-Oh card. The fact that it's a quick play and it cannot be responded to, considering where the format is going with Centurion just being released a couple weeks ago, and people are going to try to summon King Calamity on you, this might be the best option to be able to stop that from happening. Now, the problem is that you have to discard a card in order to activate it, and on top of that, you have to have the extra deck space to be able to run it. Considering on the deck that you play, if you play Branded, you don't care about it because you already running Super Poly targets in there. But for other decks, it's not going to be as easy. But again, this is really depending on where the format goes with Centurion being released. But the fact that you can't respond to this in any kind of capacity is so strong. Being able to board wipe your opponent off of 2 cards, crazy. I do think it is a very powerful card. Should be played in the side. Not every deck could play them, but definitely really good. It's definitely not the best of the best in my opinion. It's definitely good. Way better on the side. It might be at the end of this or right here too. Maybe okay in the main. Again, more dependent on your actual deck. I think I'll put this right here. It's okay in the main, okay to have in the side. It's not great because of the format, and we still need a way to see, but it's still definitely a powerful card. Triple Tactics Talents. I remember when I first heard about this, I wasn't playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Or playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In any kind of capacity, but he told me, hey, there's a card coming out that's Pot of Greed, Change of Heart, and Hand Knowledge all in one card. The only thing that it relies it is your opponent's interaction, right? And at that time, it was prevalent, right? Everyone's activating something on your turn, and I was like, that's crazy. That's a crazy card. Isn't it like Pot of Greed banned? And then fast forward till now, and Triple Tactics still a powerful card. It's the best of the best. It's great in the main, depending on the deck a little bit. Not too crazy, but it's good in the main. It's phenomenal on the side. It's a thrust target. There's so much going for this card, and I definitely think you should be playing this card. Ultimate Slayer, and the last card on my tier list. I think Ultimate Slayer is a phenomenal card. The past formats, because the Rice Heart was a legal card and Kashtira was running around, you weren't able to activate this because the graveyard was effectively turned off. So there's no real need to play this. And it's crazy because I picked them up when they were like $10, but then they skyrocketed as soon as the Rice Heart got banned. So I'm super happy on that come up. And I'm trying not to be biased. But phenomenal card. Your opponent can't react to this card in any kind of way, like Dark Ruler No More with monster effects. Super strong. Again, you have to have those targets. So I think this is heavily reliant on the type of deck that you have. And I think because of those situations, if you could fit the space in the extra deck, you're going to be able to play this card. If you can't, it's not really a good option for you. So I think it's okay. I definitely think it is in this situation. It's okay in the main, okay to have in the side. Not a bad card, but definitely not great. So that wraps it up on this tier list, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this content, and if you did, be sure to subscribe. But on top of that, be sure to let me know, how do you guys feel about this tier list? Do you guys agree with it? Do you guys think that I forgot any cards? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to give me a little tier list of your own, be sure to do so in the comment sections. But before we wrap it up, do not forget to check out all my other social media content. TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, Discord. Pull up, guys. Be part of the community. Do not forget to subscribe. Turn on the notification bell. My name is Winster. You guys have a good rest of your day. Peace out.